All right, welcome to the PPIA information session this afternoon. My name is Shay Masterson. I'm with the Office of National Scholarships Advisement here at ASU, and I'm very excited to share with you about the PPIA program. Hopefully you'll apply. So just to give you an idea of what we'll be covering in the session, I am going to give you a brief introduction to what the Office of National Scholarships Advisement, or ONSA, is here at ASU, since that is the department I'm with. And then we'll talk about the PPIA program as a whole before we go into what their fellowship experience actually is. When we talk about what the fellowship experience with the PPIA program is, we'll also have a special guest from one of your ASU peers who has participated in the program already. And then we'll also talk about who's eligible and how do you apply. So what are the different application components? What's the deadline, the timeline of all of that? And I'll wrap up with a few other awards that we advise on that you might want to consider if you're interested in PPIA, as well as what your next steps are to get started with the application, and more specifically, the advising process with our office if you're going to work on the application. First off, the Office of National Scholarships Advisement. We are a department here at ASU to help all of you, ASU students and alumni at every level, apply for major external awards. These awards are funded by national or international sources. That might be the federal government, it might be a private foundation, it might be a nonprofit organization or an NGO. But it's funded from one of these entities that has a specific mission that they're trying to fulfill. And the scholarship, fellowship, award, program, whatever they've chosen to call their particular opportunity, is also open to applicants from across the country and in some cases across the world. So our job is not to provide any of these awards to you or to decide if you get any of these awards. Our job in ONSA is to inform you about these opportunities, help you decide which ones you would want to apply for, and then once you do decide to apply for any one of them, PPIA or any of the other dozen awards we advise on, we'll give you guidance and support through that entire application process, from answering logistical questions to giving you tips on how to approach the applications, ask for letters of recommendation, and then mostly giving you feedback on your written materials as you work your way through those. So reading over your drafts, giving you feedback, talking through how you can improve them, how you can make them stronger, more compelling, because all of the awards we advise on are highly competitive. So we want you to have the best chance possible and communicate your reasoning for applying, your future goals, the preparation you have to be successful in the particular opportunity. We want to help you provide all of that information as effectively and efficiently through your application materials as possible. So that's our job in ONSA. We don't provide any of these, but we help you in applying for them. So the one at hand for today is through the PPIA program. So that's Public Policy and International Affairs, in case you were not sure what that acronym was that I keep referring to. This is a national nonprofit organization that has been around since the 80s with a focus on providing access to education and public service career pathways to individuals across the United States, especially those who may not traditionally have access to those opportunities or pursue those opportunities. So in a nutshell, that's what the PPIA program was, why it was established. 40 years ago or so. And they do a variety of things to fulfill their mission of expanding access to education, fostering inclusive leadership, and strengthening pathways to public service. One of them is the fellowship, which we'll talk about shortly. But before we get there, I'll talk about a few of their other program components. So they do have the Graduate School Consortium, which is made up of about 60 or so graduate schools across the United States that have top tier programs in the fields of public policy, public administration, and international affairs. Here at ASU, Thunderbird School of Global Management is one of the graduate schools that is part of that consortium, but there's ones from across the United States that are members of the consortium. Then they have, through that consortium and the organization itself, they offer an annual virtual grad fair in which admissions members from those graduate schools join, and then any students who are interested in pursuing graduate school in those fields are welcome to attend for free to that virtual grad fair every year. This year, it's planned for October 17th, excuse me, been a long day and I'm tripping over my words a little bit. But this year it is scheduled for October 17th. That information is on their website now, and you can sign up for it if you're interested in starting to explore graduate school in these fields. Another thing that they offer is public service weekends. These are 2 to 3 day conferences where they bring together students, professionals, and graduate programs who have an interest in the public service fields as it relates to policy, administration, and/or international affairs. And they have workshops and networking opportunities over the course of that 2 to 3 days. Sometimes they'll offer virtual ones, and sometimes they're in person. They're always free for you to attend if you're admitted to the program, but then additionally, if there is cost associated with you attending because it's in person and you don't live there, you don't have housing there, whatnot, they usually have some small scholarships that you can also apply for to cover the cost to then attend those public service weekends. Then they also have their annual public service expo, which is where it's kind of like the virtual graduate fair, except for on steroids, and it happens in person annually, where again, they're bringing together grad programs, professionals, and prospective students all in one place to network and advance kind of the overall opportunities that are available through the graduate programs and through PPIA. So that is all of the wonderful things that the PPIA program is providing, in addition to the fellowship itself, which is sometimes referred to as the PPIA Fellowship or the Junior Summer Institute. But this fellowship experience is a 7-week summer program for, you guessed it, juniors in their undergraduate degrees to have a graduate level kind of prep program over the summer. So you do take grad level courses in the fields of policy, economics, statistics, leadership. So it's a great stepping stone to prepare yourself and to be competitive for graduate programs and to confirm for yourself that you do want to pursue a graduate program in one of these fields. They all offer additional activities around the summer program as well. Not just the coursework, but you can get career coaching and mentoring through the summer. You can get tutoring during the summer in those courses. They'll have field trips and site visits and seminars and visitors that are all of these activities are designed to help you explore what grad school in these fields would be like, what a public service career in these fields would be like, and make connections with other people who are interested in the same things and professionals who are already doing the same things that you want to do in the future. If you're admitted to the fellowship, it is at no cost to you. So they cover your travel to the destination for the summer, to and from the destination. They put you up in housing for the summer. They cover on-campus meals for the summer. They cover any books and supplies that are associated with the program. And they provide you with a small living stipend, which is to help cover any other incidentals that might arise, as well as supplement any income that you may not be able to earn through a regular summer job or internship, because you do have to commit fully to this program and only this program for that 7 weeks. For the upcoming summer, If you are selected, you will go to one of these three institutions. So you would either go to Harvard University, Princeton University, or the University of Michigan. You notice the dates are slightly different between each of these sites for the summer, but generally you can expect to be there from about mid-June through the end of July. And these are firm dates. You do have to commit to the full 7 weeks that the individual site provides. They also each have a little bit of their own flavor of what they offer. In a moment, I'll put the links to the individual sites in the chat so you can reference those as well. I will also include them in the email later this week when I send out the recording of today's session. In addition to these sites, there's also an additional opportunity this coming summer, which is the Next Gen Service Corps Summer Policy Academy. It's not a new opportunity, but it's new how they're collaborating with PPIA and offering it to PPIA applicants. So if you're very interested in policy, if you're very interested in international affairs or both, and potentially grad school in these fields and a future in public service, then you may also want to consider the Summer Policy Academy, which is a condensed version of the 7 week program. And through that 3 weeks, you will spend the first week in Washington, D.C. with kind of their policy boot camp. And then you will spend the remaining 2 weeks of the 3 week program at either UC Berkeley, focusing on democracy and law policy, or University of Washington, focusing on social policy, or University of Minnesota, focusing on global policy. So you could potentially, instead of doing the Junior Summer Institute or Fellowship, you could potentially also do the Summer Policy Academy instead. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in terms of the application later. But before I do, I want you to hear a little bit more from somebody who's actually experienced this program and everything it has to offer. So I'd like to introduce you all to one of your ASU peers, Emily. She's a current undergraduate here at ASU, senior this year, because last year she was a junior and applied for the Junior Summer Institute or Junior Fellowship and was selected to go to Princeton University over the summer. And so, Emily, would you please like to share with all of your fellow Sun Devils about your PPIA experience?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much. I'm really hope that all of you do apply to this experience after hearing Shay's presentation because, as you know, I participated this past summer in the Princeton University PPIA fellowship. And again, I am an economics major and a justice studies major, and I'm also minoring in classics. And just a little context on why I applied to PPI fellowship. I was really interested in doing something over the summer that would prepare me for the next steps after undergrad. I will be graduating in 2026, so I wanted to prepare myself for the next steps. And I've been looking into getting a master's or potentially a PhD before transitioning into a JD. I'm still in the phase where I'm trying to figure out where to go with that. But an MPA has always been very interesting to me because I want to work in government, I want to work in policy, and I've always seen myself as someone who wants to support policy making. I participated in the Aliento Arizona's Future Fellowship, which gave me hands-on experience going to the Arizona State Capitol and researching specifically immigration laws within the state. Um, and another fellow who did that fellowship told me about PPIA, and that's how I learned about their commitment to diversifying um, public policy and bringing in voices that aren't always there. So minority students, low-income students, first-generation students, and I fit all three of those categories. And my experience was phenomenal. It not only reaffirmed my commitment to public service, but it made me more excited to pursue grad school afterwards. One of the main reasons that is because the PPIA fellowship, even after you complete it, your specific school, so Princeton specifically, they provide you resources for when you actually move on to your grad school application. So they provided us with GRE prep, which lasts for 2 years uh, after you activate it. So I'm gonna activate that after I graduate from ASU. And then they also provide you with support when it comes to actually applying to grad school and giving you advice and giving you that mentorship. And the Princeton program was amazing. It was very unique in that it's very intense in terms of statistics and policy, but the best thing about Princeton is that they don't expect you to know anything about calculus or statistics, but they do want you to come in wanting to learn those things because that's what they want to prepare. They want to prepare leaders in public policy who want to learn how to use data and research to actually support the laws, legislation, and or whatever it may be, whether you're trying to work in a nonprofit, but just being in those government spaces. And we we had two courses, so advanced and intermediate, and I was in the advanced section due to my economics background already. And then I also did the domestic course. So there's international and domestic that Princeton offers. The international course, they did take them to the UN, so they brought the domestic class with them, and that was an amazing experience. We got to speak to a UN ambassador from Brazil. We had a private tour of the UN, and we got to ask some in-depth questions. And then on that photo on the right, I was presenting my policy memo. And during the time at Princeton, you would research a specific policy that interests you. And for me, that was immigration detention centers and how they ran, how they facilitated. And that's what I studied. And I presented my final policy memo on how to reform the system and different ways of creating contracts that better benefit the individuals that are held and targeted within those centers. Uh, Additionally, as you can see on the top image, we're behind the blue background. They also had a grad school fair in DC that Princeton took us to, and that's where you get to talk one-on-one with like advisors and with the actual like some of the admissions committees, so people who sit on the admissions committees, and talk to them about the school, talk to them about your interests, and see what's the right fit for you afterwards. Um, Not only that, but the cool thing that I really liked about Princeton is the people that accept their PPIA fellows into the Junior Summer Institute program are also the same people who sit on the admission committee for the MPA, for the MPP, and for the PhD program. And you get to talk to them about your application afterwards. And then you also get to talk to them about um, what it is exactly that helped your application get accepted and what you can do to continue that pipeline into the MPA or the MPP. And we also had professional development sessions where, kind of like Shay said, they brought in individuals who are currently working in government or did work in the government. One of them was the previous governor of Puerto Rico, who is now teaching at Princeton. And he came and he gave a little session on political polarization and what that looks like and how we can help combat that. And then they also brought in the School of Public and International Affairs dean from Princeton in. She was amazing. She's a Palestinian American scholar, and she came and she just talked to us about ongoing conflicts within the world. On top of that, her own experience fighting for education for Palestinian women and how she would cross the border, hiding her books just to learn. So that was amazing, and that was really inspiring. And getting to hear from all these individuals, you learn a lot and you learn from the top scholars and getting that connection, that one-on-one time too. They really encourage that at Princeton, getting to talk to professors, getting to talk to the professionals that come in and getting to learn what they do and building that connection so that if you don't end up at Princeton, you can go wherever else you'd like to go. Um, and let's see, I'm trying to think of what else, because you do a lot of stuff too. They do a lot of fun activities as well. Um, they took us canoeing, uh, around the Princeton Lake. They also took us ice cream tour. They took us on an ice cream tour of New Jersey. Apparently, like ice cream's a really big thing for them there. So that was a lot of fun and that was really interesting. And my economics course was really interesting as well. My professor had like a master's in economics, an MBA, a master's in education, and he was finishing up his PhD in economics. And his whole goal was to become Einstein, but for uh, the beer sector, like the American brewery system. So that was really interesting. Like I said, it was just an amazing time where you're surrounded by such amazing individuals and scholars. And honestly, it has been so impactful because I want to be in public policy spaces. And everywhere I've gone so far, I've met a PPIA fellow and alumni. And this network is amazing. If you want to be in these spaces, knowing someone or having that connection helps get your foot into the door. So currently, I'm in Washington, D.C., and I'm finishing another program called the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute internship. And I've already met so many people on the Hill that completed the PPIA program and told me, oh, like I also did Princeton. Like, that's amazing. Like, how was it for you? And they're working at places like the Pew Research Center, places like the Congressional Data Center. And they're doing all these amazing things, and they all bridge it back to their education and their ability to pursue graduate school through the PPI after the PPIA fellowship. So that was amazing. And even in my cohort for CHCI, we have another PPIA fellow or alumni now, and he did it at the Harvard campus, and he was telling me that his experience was just the same. He was the first cohort for Harvard, and it was life-changing for him. And it also really bridged him and gave him the opportunity to be here on the Hill. And again, you just meet so many people. It's a wide network. No matter where you go, you will meet someone who completed the PPIA fellowship. And yeah, so far, like it's really helped me, especially on the Hill, just getting to network and talk to people. And I'd love to talk more if you have any questions about my PPIA fellowship. Um, if anything gives you more curiosity, or if you ever need help with your application as well. I know I had a bunch of people read over my essays to make sure that I was grammatically correct and interested. And I'd say like one of my biggest pieces of advice for your application is that first school that you put in your rankings, make sure that's the school that you want to be at, because that top choice, that first one that you rank, it really matters and the school will pay attention to that. So that's my big piece of advice.
Thank you so much, Emily. So hopefully, hearing not just the logistics of what the program is, but a little bit of firsthand experience helps solidify your interest in the program. To echo some of what Emily shared. So the experience, I already talked about what the summer experience entails or the summer benefits are, but your benefits continue beyond the summer. So you also, in addition to GRE prep support, you also will have application fee waivers to any of the consortium schools that you choose to apply for grad school. You also will have lifetime access to attend the Public Service Expo that they provide annually. You will become a member of that 4,000 plus strong alumni network that Emily was referring to. That is people who have participated in this program or a version of this program over the past 40 or so years. So recent alumni like Emily and her colleague on the Hill right now, but also those who did it many, many years ago. And then it also comes with potential funding for graduate school in the future. So many of the programs in the consortium will offer financial support if you're then admitted to their grad programs. That's not just the 3 sites that are involved in the summer fellowship, but the 60 plus members of the consortium that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so the benefits keep on coming with becoming a PPIA fellow. So who is eligible? It is the junior fellowship. So what they deem as a junior is anybody who is graduating between December of 2026 and August of 2027. So you must be graduating next fall, the following spring, or summer in order to be eligible to apply for the program right now. If you will be graduating sooner than that, then you are no longer eligible for the PPIA program. If you will be graduating later than that, then you are not yet eligible for the PPIA program. Okay. Um, this also must be your first bachelor's degree. That's not counting if you're doing a dual degree right now. That means if you've already previously earned a bachelor's degree before starting the program that you are currently in at ASU. This program is amazingly open to not just US citizens, but also legal permanent residents, DACA recipients, and international students. Although for international students, it is important to note that you're only eligible for the Princeton site. You're not eligible for the other two sites. Okay, so that'll be important when we come to talk about the application components. But that's the basic eligibility. There's no minimum GPA or prior coursework required, though having any courses in econ or statistics or policy is definitely helpful. It's not a requirement. And while there's no minimum GPA requirement, they will consider your academic record because you will be taking intensive, rigorous grad school level courses in a short amount of time over the summer. There's lots of support to help you through those, but they do want to see that you have some academic preparation for that, even if not directly in those subjects. So the application is currently open. It typically opens sometime in September. It is already open right now. It will close November 1st. So you have to complete your application by November 1st. So you have a little bit, like right at a month from now. Notifications will go out at the end of January, possibly into February. And then you'll have typically like a couple weeks after that to confirm your acceptance if you've been selected. If you are notified originally that you're on the wait list, then after February 12th or about 2 weeks after that original notification, you'll be notified if you've been promoted from the wait list. So to apply, you will have to do an online application that's going to include some basic educational and financial information. They also ask for documentation to verify your financial information. This is typically going to be the student aid report from the FAFSA or your financial aid award letter from the institution. You do not have to have a demonstrated financial need to be eligible for this program, but they will consider financial need in the selection process. They also want to see all unofficial transcripts from any colleges you've attended. So whether ASU is the only university you've attended or you've attended some previous colleges or universities, they want to see all unofficial transcripts in the application. For ASU, you can download those unofficial transcripts from My ASU really easily and quickly. You do not have to request or pay for official transcripts to apply. You will have to give official transcripts if you're selected, but not in the application process. You're also going to rank your site preferences. So that's what Emily was referring to. They're going to ask you to say which is your first, second, and third choice of those three sites, Harvard, Princeton, and University of Michigan. So that is why I listed in the chat earlier the links to each of those individual sites' PPIA programs. So you can read a little bit more about the individual flavor of them. If you're interested at grad school at one of those universities more so than the others, that can also be a factor in rating your selections. If you have a particular interest in where that university is located versus others, that can be part of your site preferences. PPIA also offered their own webinar yesterday where the site directors for each of these locations shared a little bit more about the program at their site and how it may be similar or different than some of the others. That is not live yet, but the recording will go onto the PPIA website in probably by the end of the week. If it's available by the time my recording is available of today, I'll include that in my email to you. But you can also just check back like this weekend on the PPIA program. So do your research on the individual sites so you can make an educated site preference. While it's important and they will consider that, also keep in mind that even if you select Harvard as your first choice, you can be admitted to the Princeton or the University of Michigan site. So that is something to consider. They all will consider you still, but they do look at that site preference in their consideration. They prefer to have folks there who they prefer and prefer them, if that makes sense. Um, then you'll also have a resume. You'll upload your resume. This is a maximum of 2 pages, although they do like you to be concise. So if you can keep it to 1 page, that's great, but they'll accept up to 2 pages. And they want everything you've done academically, extracurricularly, job and internship wise since starting college. Okay, so do not include stuff from high school, that they're not looking for that on your application, on your resume. If you're a non-traditional student, we can talk through what that means. But generally, for those traditional students out there that went straight from high school to college, or maybe had like 1 year, 2 years out of high school before starting college, they really don't want to see too much of that stuff before college. And then you will be required to have one recommendation as well. This individual should be somebody who can speak to your interests, motivation, and preparation for a public service career. Okay. Ideally, this recommendation should be more from a professional type reference. So somebody who supervised you in an internship or a job, especially one that would be related to policy, international affairs, public service, although it doesn't have to be. If you don't have somebody like that that you can get a recommendation from, then you can go with an academic reference who can also speak to your interest and motivation for a public service career in these particular fields. But unlike a lot of other fellowships and scholarships, this isn't, they lean towards the professional side in that recommendation. And then the bulk of the application will be your essays. So there's 2 essays. This is a little different from last year when Emily applied, but there's 2 essays that are both a maximum of 500 words. One is talking about your path and potential. So what is the public service path that you see yourself on, that you want to do in the future, the impact you want to have in the future, and the experiences you've had so far in life that have informed that goal, right? So how you've come to that as the goal and impact that you want to have in the future. And then essay 2 is the experiences that you've had and will have that will prepare you for the type of leader you're going to be in the future. So there's some overlap there, but that's something that we can work through together when I see some drafts from you. And then there's an optional essay where they want you to share any personal or financial circumstances that you think are relevant to share with them that aren't addressed elsewhere in the application. Okay, so there's really many possibilities for what this essay might entail. It might be providing further insights to something that would have gone in essay 1 or 2, but you didn't have the space for. It could be if you want to provide a little bit more insight into your financial documents that you've provided. If your academic record isn't as strong, you can provide some insight as to how and why you'll be prepared for this despite an academic record that is not as strong, right? So there's any number of things that you could do in that optional essay, but it is optional, although I advise anytime you're given an option to provide additional documentation in an application like this, you should. So if you're interested in PPIA either this year or in a future year, here's some other awards that you also might want to consider that we advise on. We're not going to go into detail on these. I'm just going to give you the snapshot of them. The Truman Scholarship is also for those who are interested in public service careers. and would be interested in going to grad school as part of their journey towards a public service career. They are looking for people who already have some pretty extensive involvement and leadership in public service type activities, not just within your university, but beyond your university, so in your larger community as well. This is also for third year students. Okay, so ones that are so similar timeline as PPIA, although they don't, there's a little bit more flexibility with that, especially for those who are in accelerated programs or like 4+1 programs, that type of thing. The Udall Scholarship is for if you are interested in environmental policy specifically, or if you are a Native American student who is interested in tribal public policy. Okay, so kind of two different avenues of policy interest that you could be interested in through the Udall Scholarship. And this one is a traditional scholarship in that it provides you with funding for your undergraduate costs for the next year. It's open to second and third year students. The Voyager program is also for those who are interested in a public service career in the future, and it provides you with funding for your remaining 2 years of undergraduate studies. So if you're somebody who's it's not quite time to apply for PPIA yet, you may apply for Voyager later this year to receive funding for your 2 remaining years of undergraduate studies, as well as leadership and professional development, as well as funding and support to do a summer voyage to gain experience and travel experience in your field of interest. It's a very generous program, also focused on those interested in public service. If you're just interested in policy and politics in general and want to do some like seminars and workshops and projects more related around that over the summer, but not necessarily explicitly focused on grad school, although it would be great grad school prep, there's the Hudson Institute for Political Studies, which is open to any undergraduate level, first through fourth year. And then a lot of students who come to this session are also interested in law school, like Emily is. So if you're interested in law school specifically, there's two programs that are 1 week residential programs over the summer, one at Stanford and one at Harvard, which is kind of like a very shortened version of the PPIA program, but it's to lend itself to getting you exposure and networking and preparation for potentially applying to and attending law school in the future. Depending which one you want to apply for, they're open to different academic levels. So that's just something to keep in mind too. But these are all other awards that if you're interested, we can talk further about them in an individual advising appointment. So your next steps, schedule an appointment with me. If you want to apply for PPIA this year, then schedule an appointment for PPIA advising through our portal, advising portal. If you're like, I'm not quite ready to apply for PPIA or PPIA it doesn't sound like it's exactly what I was looking for, then or one of these other awards or many of these other awards I mentioned briefly are of interest, you can schedule a general undergraduate advising through the same QR code that's on the screen right now. Okay, so either way, schedule an appointment with me sooner rather than later so that we can either get started with the PPIA application or talk about other awards you might want to consider. If it is PPIA, you should open an application or at least do the preview of an application so you can see what all of those components are that they're asking for. I want you to consider who your options are for your reference, and we can talk about that in our advising appointment. I also want you to research those individual sites, okay? And then I want you to reflect on the essay prompts, which you can find on the website. So I mentioned briefly what they are asking, but I want you to reflect on those. You don't have to start writing them before we meet, but I at least want you to reflect on them a little bit. And I want you to update your current resume because that will be a part of the application and it's helpful to me in guiding our conversation. So those are some steps that are ideal before we have our first meeting to discuss the PPIA application itself. But those appointments are available and live as we speak. Oh, I almost forgot. I got so excited, I forgot to talk about the Public Service Academy. So within your PPIA application, you are going to indicate if you are also interested in being considered for that summer policy academy, right? That was the shortened version. So you're going to indicate yes or no if you're interested in that. And if you indicate yes, you're going to also indicate of those three sites that are an option for weeks 2 to 3 of that program. That was University of California, Berkeley, University of Minnesota, and University of Washington. You're also going to rate each of those. There's further information on the PPIA website about what each one of those policy academies will be focused on. They each have, again, their own flavor. So that's something that you'll want to indicate in your PPIA application. So if you're not selected for the summer fellowship, would you be interested in the Summer Policy Academy? If so, then at a later date, an application for that program specifically will be shared with you. Okay. That application isn't open yet, though. So that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for joining us. And